Okay, let's just talk about why we study communication and why it's important. So, I'm a firm believer that everybody should have to take this course because we imagine that communication is common sense, and it's really not. And that is evident in all the problems that exist in our world today. So, consider this: communication is the central focus of your existence. From the time you are born, you're communicating with the people around you, you're interacting with your world. Communication is the foundation of all disciplines. So, yes, you are taking this communications class as part of your college degree plan. But if you think about it, communication is part of every single class that you're going to take. Becoming competent communicators can benefit us in all areas of life, personal, social, and workplace. So again, this is not limited to the classroom by no means. Learning these tools that we're going to learn in this course can help us in all areas of our life for sure. So for college students, it's especially important. One researcher concluded, based on a review of numerous studies, that students often graduate with serious weaknesses in communication knowledge and skills. So you guys are still in high school, and you are taking your college classes, some of them early. Just keep this in mind, that this is a skill that you should continue to work on, and not be one of the statistics. Essential skills for every college graduate: speaking, listening, problem solving, interpersonal skills, working in groups, and leading groups. So as you continue your college career, hopefully you will have experience in all of these skills, and hopefully this class is a really good starting point for you. So communication is defined differently depending on what textbook you use. The little textbook excerpt we are using defines it this way: communication is the process of sharing information and feelings in such a way that understanding takes place. So this particular definition really ties in the part of emotion in our understanding of the message. I like sharing meaning, which is the same thing here. And we want to be competent communicators. So communication competence is engaging in communication with others that is perceived to be both effective and appropriate in a given context. So effective is the degree to which we've progressed toward the achievement of our goals, and then appropriate behavior that is viewed as legitimate for or fitting to the context. Just think about that. I mean, you can scream at someone and it may be effective. Your message may be getting across, like if you're angry and you're screaming at someone, but it may not be appropriate, right? You may exchange information with your teacher. You might show disrespect and you answer the teacher in a disrespectful manner. Well, it may be effective in that the message was communicated, but it was not appropriate. So being competent communicators means that we consider both effectiveness and appropriateness. So communication is a transactional process. Our little excerpt of our textbook does not list out the most common or the three models that are generally accepted in this world of the study of communication. But I thought I'd go ahead and share them with you just so that you can visualize them. I think the visualization, the definition of these really helps. So the most basic model is the linear model. So it is exactly what you think it is. It's a straight arrow view. It is communication that is one way. So the emphasis is on the channel and the noise, which is distractions. And we'll talk about those in a moment. But think about it this way: email communications, without response, big speeches that are given without audience feedback, those are linear. Okay, so we have this, basically the sender, the source, giving this information out, and as long as there is no feedback, that is the straight arrow view, the linear model. And then we have the interactive model, the ping pong view, which is back and forth. So this is when emails are exchanged. I suppose even if you tweeted and you got feedback on the tweet, like a response, we still have a ping pong view here. It's a two-way process. There is an emphasis on the fields of experience, the world view. So we do have anytime you have people that are communicating with each other, certainly their worldview comes into play. But this is still very limited in what can be accomplished and the type of communication that is participated in. I mean, think of it also like it could be as simple as walking up to the cashier at McDonald's and ordering, food, and then get that cashier ask you, what else you need, and then on the burger maybe what you want on it, and you explain, but then the cashier doesn't immediately tell you how much your meal is, and so this is when our worldview starts coming into play. You may expect the person to tell you what the cost is, and then they don't, or whatever. So we still have this ping pong view. We have this interactive that's going on, two people, two individuals, two groups, whatever. But it is still quite limited. We're not relying on our relationship with these people. This communication is not ongoing, and that's where the transactional model comes into play. This is when we have ongoing communication. We have multiple parties involved, and then we remember, not only are we talking about the content, so that is what's in the message, what's in the communication, but the relationship of people. Certainly worldview still plays a part in this, but just keep in mind that this is, every day where we go into a classroom and we have we see the same teacher every day, and we have the same group of students in our classroom, and so the way we interact with these people is certainly different than that more limited interactive model. Meaning is the conscious pattern humans create out of their interpretation of experience. We construct meaning by making connections and patterns in our minds, which make sense of our world. And then meaning is shared when there are overlapping interpretations between individuals. We do not all see the world the same way. We're going to look at this a little bit more closely next week when we talk about perception. So communication happens when meaning is actually shared, when there is an intersection of our understanding. So whatever you meant to communicate as the sender, the receiver received that exact meaning. And sometimes we have to work a little bit hard to make sure that the meaning is being shared. Like we ask follow-up questions. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Maybe we have to go a little bit further in our effort to explain something, because we may be coming from two different worlds. This certainly comes up when we are dealing with people from other cultures. We have to check in and check understanding. All right, so we have some vocabulary. We're not quizzing over these or anything this week, but I want you to kind of get them in your mind. So we have this one end of the communication model. We have the source or the speaker. They're the same thing. These are the people that are putting ideas and feelings and thoughts into code. And then we have the other side of it, the receiver or listener, and this is the person who's decoding. They're the ones interpreting the words and signals. And I mean, when we have people that are speaking two different languages, this becomes really impossible, right? Because there's no way, if you don't know the language, to decode or interpret. The message, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, we will get into nonverbal communication in a few weeks for sure. Verbal has to deal with the words that are used. And the channel is the mean or medium of the message, whether that's a speech or an interview or an email message or a book or whatever. So that is how the message is delivered, I guess you could say. There is also noise or interference that we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, whether that's physical, psychological, physiological, or semantic. And then the context. So different textbooks define context differently. I like the idea of the situation best. Our little text describes it as the expectation of the individuals involved. And so that's the same thing. Think of it like this. If you go to a church service, your expectation, the context is in a Christian church service, I expect the preacher to deliver a sermon, and I'll, as a member of the audience, I'll receive that sermon. That's the context, So our expectation is met. If we showed up at a school board meeting, we would not expect to get a Christian sermon, right? So the expectation is the context. And the feedback, this is obviously the response. We know what feedback is. This is the listener being able to give feedback, give a message back to the sender or source. So on that context, I just kind of point out, just remember your 5, in this case, it's 6 W's and an H. Who, what, to whom, why, where, when, and how, and all of these things combine together to be the situation that let us establish our expectations. And let's talk a little bit more about interference, because I think it's just something that we don't think about very often. So there are 2 types. There are external interference. So external is what's in the environment. So think about this. Perhaps you are in your high school classroom and you're listening to the teacher, you're trying to anyway, but there is some construction work going on right outside the window of your classroom, and all you can hear is like the machinery out there and maybe men yelling, and so you're not getting the information probably that you need to because you're being distracted. So anything in our environment can serve as a distraction, and we need to do what we can to kind of block out those distractions, right? But it's interesting that we have a lot of internal distractions. So physiological distractions are those biological influences. Maybe you need to go to the restroom. Maybe you are hungry. Maybe you're hot. Maybe you're cold. All of these things that are occurring within your body can keep you from communicating well. Psychological is those things that are going on in your mind. If you have any kind of biases at all, this is where issues with racism come into play, or prejudice, because we have these preconceived notions about people, and so we are viewing that communication with those people through that lens. It's very damaging and troublesome, but those psychological interferences can occur. And even, to me, semantic is part of the psychological. Word choice will play a part. Word choice can be distracting. We can get hung up on a word someone uses because we find it harsh or whatever. But we also may get caught up on words that we don't understand, and so we're stuck kind of trying to figure out what a word is, and we've lost the message that's being delivered otherwise. So all of these can be distractions that keep us from communicating well. Okay, so read the excerpt that is provided for you. Watch this video, and I hope this helps you kind of understand better how and why we communicate, and maybe we can be more competent communicators. Thank you.